Hey there, AP Stats Cats. It is time for Unit 3, which is the one with all the words, the simulations, the sampling, and the experimental design. What I did is I made a review highlights page that had several definitions already typed out for you. I thought that would be a lot easier and more efficient than you watching me write them and then you writing them down. So this might be one that you want to even just go ahead and print to have next to you and be able to write on while you're watching the video. That's up to you, but that's just a thought. I'm not going to read through every single definition because you have them in front of you, but I just want to highlight a couple of things. For one, when you take a look at random, keep in mind that that is the big key when we talk about experimental design. You need to have randomization. You need to have random assignment. I will be extraordinarily surprised if randomization doesn't come in somewhere on this AP exam. If nothing else, it's one of the conditions that we always talk about in terms of inference. But if you are using some sort of randomization, make sure to talk about why or how that randomization comes out. Are you flipping a coin? Are you tossing a die? Are you using a random number generator? Be specific, even if it seems like it's overkill. If you have the time to talk about it, you want to explain, not just say, and we'll randomly select a number, but explain how you plan to do that. After that, we have definition of simulation and all the steps that are involved. I really don't think that you are going to be using simulation in the AP exam. If so, it would be because you have a set of random digits and you could maybe explain how to find the first few, but to have to explain every single one of these steps, I think is unlikely. After that, you have lots more vocabulary that talks about surveys, bias, census, sample, population, etc. Keep in mind that when you have a sample, that is a subgroup of the population, and numbers that describe samples are called statistics. On the other hand, when you have population, that's the entire group of individuals you're trying to make inference about or that you are trying to learn about. The parameter is the number that describes the population. So S goes with S, P goes with P, and the parameters that we most often see, especially in our inference, are the population proportion and the population mean. Those are the ones that you'll see in hypotheses, the null hypothesis, the alternative hypothesis. After that, we have lots of different types of samples. The simple random sample is basically where everybody has a fair shot until the end, like if you're picking names out of a hat. Up until the very last shot, everyone still has a chance to be selected. A stratified random sample is where you have many different groups, could be separated by age, by grade, by, I don't know, maybe by gender, by state, by type of job, by favorite ice cream flavor, whatever it is that we're looking at. And once people are split into those groups, then a certain number is picked from each. Now, it may or may not be the same number that's picked from each. My example that I have here at the end is, for example, if you want to pick 10 people from each class, some freshmen, some sophomores, some juniors, and some seniors, that would be dividing everybody in the school into the strata, the different levels, and then sampling each. So it's almost like you take a simple random sample from within each of those different strata. Moving on to the next page, the cluster sample. Here, let's see if I can bring this down a little bit so you can see. Sorry about that. Let's see, so you can see it under my face. Oops, that didn't work very well. All right, I'll be right there. You know, what's life without a little technological surprise every once in a while, right? Okay, so a cluster sample is where you pretty much just take a group that already exists and you sample them. So for example, if I needed 4 volunteers and we were back in the classroom, maybe I would pick that first group of 4 students that's right by the door. Or I would maybe number each group, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'd randomly select the number 5, and that means everyone in group 5 would be selected. It is a form of convenience sampling. Usually it's a matter of convenience, but there could be some randomization attached if, for example, I were to number those groups, but then you pick everyone from within the group. Or imagine that maybe I numbered each classroom and I randomly selected a classroom and then asked everybody who was in that classroom at that time to be part of the sample. That would be another way of making a cluster sample. Systematic sample is where we it's like you're counting. So let's say that we count off by 3s. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and all the twos you come with me, you're going to be part of my sample. That would be systematic. There is some randomness involved based on, where did I start counting? Did I start at the first person that I saw? Did I start at the back of the room? Did I go in alphabetical order? But really still, this is not nearly as good. SRS and stratified random sample are generally the best ways to sample. In addition to that, you have some additional, sorry, I just said additional twice, vocab under coverage, which is where usually some people are not represented as much as they should. Oftentimes when we think about this in terms of social science, why are people being undercovered? Is it because of some racial bias? Is it because of other inequities in the system? That some people just are not getting to count as much. Right now, we've got the 2020 census going on. So hopefully everybody is going to count and is going to be represented fairly. Unfortunately, that's not the way that the world always works, especially when politics and partisanship gets in the way. To finish off a little bit more vocab, and then we're going to try one example together. Levels and treatments we're going to see in just a minute. When you have an experiment, you have some sort of a factor that you are trying to see, will it impact the result or not? Well, the levels are the different specific values that an experimenter chooses for a factor. Let's say we were maybe testing out a new drug and we wanted to try 100 milligrams versus 200 milligrams versus 300 milligrams. Well, the factor is that drug. The levels would be the different specific amounts of the drug. The treatment could be the factor, or it could be a combination of different things. In this particular example that I just made, there was really only looking at the drug. But what if there was a combination? Sometimes we've talked about like a weight loss plan, where maybe we would combine a certain amount of exercise along with a certain number of calories eaten or amount of carbs per day or something like that. A treatment could be a composition of a bunch of different things, whereas the factors then would be the amount of exercise and how many carbs were eaten or whatever it might be. So there could be multiple factors. There can be multiple levels within each factor, and then the treatment would really be, the number of treatments would be the number of levels times the number of factors. If you're ever asked about the main principles of experimental design, they are control, randomization, and replication. If you want to take a look more at that, I would say maybe go back and check out your book. But basically the short version is control means that we want to try to limit all other factors except for specifically what we're looking at in our experiment. Randomization means make sure to include randomization, randomly assign subjects to different groups. And then replication, don't just do the experiment once, do it many times, hopefully in different conditions, many different locations, so that you really can draw a nice big general conclusion. And then blocking is something that I could foresee they might try to ask you about how you can use blocking within a short answer part of a question. When you block, you're dividing the subjects into groups that are as similar as possible, so that when they each get a different treatment, the only difference that we can really bring in there is because of the treatment. Otherwise, the people in each block should be as similar as possible. If you go back to your notes for chapters 10 through 12, we had a really good forest example, and there were others as well. I think there was one about carpet in apartments. Those are good FRQs if you want to go back and take a look at that again from probably October-ish, I'm guessing. Otherwise, a few days ago, we did a blocking example together in the Google Meet, so that would be a good one to go back and look at. To finish off today, let's do a quick little practice problem together. And this is about college students spending, which is probably near and dear to our hearts, right? A consumer group wants to see if the new education program will improve the spending habits of college students. Students in an economics class are randomly assigned to 3 different courses on spending habits. So the experimental units, even though it says units, don't make it think it has to be like kilometers or miles or something. This is also when, sorry about that. When we're talking about humans, we would say subjects instead of experimental units, but that's really what we're focusing on. Here, it's the college students. Those are our experimental units. That's who we are gathering information about. How many factors are there? Well, they want to see if a new education program will improve the habits. So there is just one, and that is the education program. And will it make a difference? Yes or no? How many treatments are there? Well, how many education programs are there? Well, there are 3 different courses. So that, oops, sorry about that. That would be our treatments. The 3 different courses on spending habits. And what is the response variable? What are we hoping to gather information about? Well, we want to see if by taking this new education program, it will improve the spending habits of college students. So the response variable would be whether or not the spending habits improve. All right, in this particular case, we really don't have different levels because we just had the 3 different courses. All right, 1 factor, 3 different versions of those really, but well, I guess they could be considered levels. It's just that we don't know, like it's not like something numeric, like a milligrams or something like that. But we have course A, course B, and course C. So I guess those would be 3 levels of that 1 factor. And so that makes 3 treatments. So 3 times 1 equals 3 treatments altogether. If we went back to the exercise example from before, let's say we had 4 different types of exercise routines with 2 different diets, we would have 4 levels for exercise, 2 levels for the factor of diet. 4 times 2 would make 8 treatments. But yeah, I'm going to go back and say, yes, actually, these are 3 levels based on the 1 factor that we do have. All right, I hope that that helps a little bit. I know that some of you are not as comfortable with this unit just because there were so many words, but I really think that if you have definitions nearby, should you need them, that wouldn't be a bad idea. They can't possibly ask you about every single vocab word. So know your different sampling methods and make sure to talk about random, random, random. The other thing is the difference between an experiment and an observational study. In an experiment, you have treatments that you are assigning, whereas an observational study, you're just watching, gathering data, but no action is taken. No treatments are being imposed. I hope that helps a little bit. Next time I'll come back with some information about probability. Have a great day. Take care.